There is a road in the South Island that ends at a famous walking track. 5 ratepayers live down that road. Tens of thousands of visitors travel along it every year. Somebody pays for the ceiling, the water, the toilets, and the rubbish. It is those 5. That is not a scandal, and nobody stole anything. It is the shape of the New Zealand funding system working normally. A New Zealand council raises most of its money from a tax on property. It cannot invent any other tax by itself. Only Parliament can create a new one. So a town full of visitors pays for those visitors out of the homes of its residents. Once you see that sentence, a whole class of local arguments becomes readable. The word rates is where most newcomers go wrong. Rates look like a bill for services. They are really a property tax. Your council values your land and buildings, then charges a percentage. The charge does not ask what you earn. It does not ask how much of the service you personally use. A retired couple and a wealthy family in similar houses can pay similar amounts. Rates are also the main event, not a side item. In 2024, about 65% of district and city council operating income came directly from rates. Fees, grants from central government, and investment income make up the rest. There is no local income tax anywhere in New Zealand. There is no local sales tax either. Compare that with almost any American city and the difference is startling. Now put a tourism economy on top of that structure. Queenstown Lakes has long carried one of the highest visitor-to-resident ratios in the world. A former mayor there put it at about 34 visitors for every resident. At the time, roughly 24,000 ratepayers were carrying the district. Those ratepayers fund pipes, roads, car parks, and public toilets. The pipes are sized for the crowd, not for the households. An airport town builds like a city and pays like a small district. The obvious answer is to charge the visitor a little. In June 2019, the district put exactly that idea to a postal vote. The proposal was a 5% charge on commercial accommodation. Estimates suggested it might raise up to $40 million a year. 81.37% of returned votes said yes. More than 41% of voters took part, which is high for a non-binding poll, and then nothing happened. Not because the council changed its mind, because a council cannot do this on its own. Rating powers in New Zealand are granted by Parliament and limited by statute. A charge on accommodation is a new tax, not a rate. Creating it needs a law, and only Parliament writes laws. So the district began preparing a local bill to take to Wellington. Then the border closed in 2020, international tourism vanished, and the plan was shelved. 7 years after that vote, the district still had no levy. In August 2026, the National Party ruled an accommodation levy out entirely. It committed to no new taxes if returned to government. The mayor of Queenstown called it policymaking in a state of panic. His argument was not about tourists at all. He pointed out that ratepayers in a tourism town are already paying for tourism. They pay through the property bill, quietly every quarter. Refusing a visitor charge does not remove that cost. It only decides who carries it. This is the part worth holding on to. The argument sounds like one about taxing tourists. It is really an argument about which pocket. There is one national tool, and it is worth knowing. New Zealand charges most international visitors a conservation and tourism levy when they arrive. It began in 2019 at $35. On the 1st of October 2024, it rose to $100. But that money goes to central government. It funds conservation work and tourism projects across the country. It does not land in the account of the district that hosts the crowd. So the money is collected at the national border while the pressure sits on a local footpath. That mismatch is the real story, and it is much older than any one election. New Zealand runs a very centralised state. Local government here collects a small share of all public money compared with similar countries. Councils own the water pipes, the local roads, the libraries and the parks. They own almost none of the tax base that could pay for them. Every few years the same argument returns, wearing a different costume: a bed tax, a regional fuel tax, a share of the goods and services tax collected locally. Each proposal is an attempt to answer one question. Should the town that carries the cost also hold a tap it can turn on? You do not need a tourism town to feel this. Your own rates bill contains the answer to a question you may never have asked. Look at it and find the value your council assigned to your property. That number, multiplied by a rate set in a council meeting, is your share. Not your usage, your property. If somebody you know grumbles about their rates going up, send them this. The rise usually has less to do with waste than with a funding model set long ago, because here is where the story actually rests. 81% of a district voted for a way to make visitors contribute. 7 years later, the answer was still no. They were never really asking their council. They were asking Parliament, and Parliament had not said yes.